We've had a few from both CULC and CUCA, the Conservative and Labour clubs. Which one do you want to go first, home or away?
Oh, let's take the Conservatives first. They don't get much of a say in this town.
Okay, yeah, so like the student I am, I've got these on my phone. The first one, would a Labour government led by Jeremy Corbyn withdraw from the single market? And if so, would you vote for it? And that would obviously be overturning a vote that you've just done in an amendment on the Brexit bill.
Well, it's a very specific question. My position on this is absolutely clear. I don't think we should be leaving the European Union. I've voted against it at every stage. What Jeremy Corbyn will do is, I suggest best ask to Jeremy Corbyn. I can't read his mind, but what I would say is that the best opportunity for us to stay in the European Union is to get rid of a Conservative government that's taken us down this ridiculous track. It's been done largely because of a feud within the Conservative Party, which I'm sure former CUCA members have contributed to, and it's doing our country huge harm.
You say that it's a question that only Jeremy knows the answer to. The fact that you're unable to really confirm what Jeremy Corbyn thinks leads us to wonder how the public is supposed to know whether Labour is a pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit party.
Labour campaigned against leaving the European Union very hard, and Labour is a pro-European party. The question is how you manage the politics at the moment. But it's clearly shifted over the last couple of years, and I would say it is Keir Starmer who's actually doing the detailed negotiation work, and I think he's handled this very deftly. And I think the best chance of us staying in the European Union is, as I said earlier, get rid of this government as soon as possible, replace it with a Labour government, and we will put absolutely jobs in the economy first.
So do you think there's a real chance for an election this year, as Jeremy Corbyn was saying?
I personally don't think it's very likely we'll have an election this year, although the government could fall at any time if it continues its preposterous policies on Brexit, and we see the kind of ongoing crisis that we're seeing with the NHS, and now with the economy beginning to struggle around the Carillion issue, which may well go much further yet, we don't know. So the politics at the moment are, it seems to me, likely that the government will just about stagger on.
And you and your colleagues have been very outspoken. You just mentioned Carillion, this big sort of building company that's gone bankrupt. The other question by CUCA is that Jeremy Corbyn criticised the government for its relationship with the bankrupt building firm Carillion, yet Labour-run Leeds City Council entered into a contract with the firm just 1 week ago. And then they go savage here. Why is Labour playing politics with people's livelihoods?
Well, it's the Conservatives, of course, who have been playing politics with people's livelihoods. I think it's fair to say that for individual councils, much harder for them to do the due diligence on these companies when the government is in a position, it's got all the resources to be making those kind of bigger judgments.
But it does fit into a narrative of, you know, the public not being able to trust Labour with the economy and all that sort of thing.
No. The narrative is it's the Conservatives that can't be trusted with the economy. Remember, they promised to eliminate the deficit. What's happened? They completely failed. It's the Conservatives, starting with the Liberal Democrats, of course, in the coalition, who introduced the austerity economics that have led to this absurd position we're in today, when it appears we can't afford a decent health service, when we're not having policing on the streets properly. I've just been meeting small businesses who are despairing of the lack of policing. The Conservatives have completely tanked the British economy.
But then when your colleague Angela Rayner, Shadow Education Secretary, says that the Labour economic plan isn't fully costed, do you sympathise with some of your voters or supporters who aren't quite confident that the plans all add up and the numbers are going to work out for them?
Look, when we had the election last year, it was called at very short notice because Theresa May basically once again put the interests of the Conservative Party before the interests of the country. She thought she could cut and run and get a majority, and of course was completely knocked back. In that very short period of time, we had to do a lot of work. I was a shadow minister at the time, and we had literally days to put together fully costed plans. So I think actually the Labour Party did a very good job in last year's general election, and we showed how it absolutely could be done. Now, it's a constantly changing world. In three or 4 years' time, who knows what situation we'll be in. But the last election, we demonstrated how the resources we've got could be applied differently. It's very simple, actually. There are very wealthy people at the top of our country who are doing very well, and there are very, very many people who are really struggling. I'm a socialist. I believe in redistribution. It's not difficult. Our local schools should not be struggling in the way that they are. Just this week, there was a report showing just how much money could have been won for this country if we'd had a different attitude to welcoming international students.
And we'll move on that note to the CULC questions.
The difficult ones now, yeah.
Well, yeah, perhaps not a difficult one this one, but an important one. Do you think there is a mental health crisis in the UK at the moment? And if so, what are the causes of that crisis?
Crisis is a big word, but I think actually in this case it's probably true. And I was actually at a primary school this morning talking about exactly this issue. A teacher who's been involved in teaching for 20, 30 years, and she says she sees a very, very different set of problems and issues presenting these days from 10, 15 years ago. And there's two sides to this. Our mental health services that can help people deal with mental illness, but also that fundamental question, why are we seeing many more presenting with mental health issues? And it's a complicated set of problems, I think. The world has changed, the kind of pressures, social media, I think, has played a part in it. Are we putting enough resource into mental health services? A lot of talk about it has been from the government, parity of esteem. I see very little evidence it's actually working on the ground. And actually I was talking to students at Anglia Ruskin just before Christmas about it. They've done a big research project and showed just what a big issue this is, particularly for young people. Mm-hmm. So it's a very serious issue, a very serious question.
Yeah, I think that's something we all agree with. It's easy for an opposition party to say we need to invest more in X, Y and Z, but they never seem to say what they would cut in. So I'd encourage you to say that actually. What would you not spend money on?
Well, no, because that's a false question. Because it's assuming there is a fixed amount of money and you have to cut it. I'd cut a lot of wealthy people's over entitlement, quite frankly. We redistribute resources from the very wealthy in this country to fund our public services, in which business taxation has been cut dramatically. Some people have done very well over the last few years, and we would take that money back and fund our public services properly. So it is about money, but then you're right to say beyond that, there are then a series of really actually very interesting issues, and I and others do talk about this a lot, but no one perhaps is quite so interested. I mean, personalised medicine, for instance, and the work that's been done in and around Cambridge in some of the research, the Sanger Institute, genome sequencing. There's a really exciting time ahead in terms of medicine with some big questions. Who is going to be able to afford this kind of stuff? Is it going to be provided through a nationally funded National Health Service, or some people are going to be able to buy better health for the future? I think it's a really important political debate. And then the whole debate around social care. Who looks after people who really ought to be coming out of hospital to somewhere where they can be cared for? And at the moment, because of the huge cuts to our local councils, that's not happening. Right. So we are talking about it. Question is, do the media always report it? No, that's not going to stop us going on trying.